Getting proper mental health care can help you feel more like you. That's why Cerebral offers convenient access to online mental health services, including therapy and medication management. Cerebral's diverse clinician team can help with anxiety, insomnia, relationship issues, workplace stress, and more. You can schedule and communicate with your care team through Cerebral's mobile app and attend your sessions from the comfort of your own home. Get started with or without insurance. Plus, you can use your FSA or HSA. Start your first month for 50% off at Cerebral.com/ACAST.
Hello, I'm Dave. I'm with my wife, Cathy.
Hello.
We're not walking anywhere today. We're actually the complete opposite of that. We're sat down 10,000 miles in the sky.
10,000 miles in the sky?
Wait, how?
Do you mean feet?
Feet, yeah.
Basically, we weren't going to do this now.
We're in space!
We're on the flight home to Ireland for Christmas, and we've suddenly realised that we're in optimum recording position because the baby's asleep and the woman next to us is asleep, and this is perfect. So we're going to do this super fast. We're going to do our top 5 movies of the year. A little bit rough and ready because our lists were just partially done. We've just quickly finished them, and then we'll finish this segment and we'll record the rest after the flight finishes. Yeah.
Cathy's very tired.
Very tired.
You can tell you're not making.
No, I'm not making much sense.
I'm tired as well.
We've also asked some friends of the
show. 5 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, we've been up early. We've asked some friends of the show, past and future podcast guests, to give us their best movies of the year as well.
Their worst movies.
And their worst. So
and
that would be.
You're going to hear from them throughout the show.
Yeah. Okay. Quick. Straight into it, Dave.
What's your number 5?
My number 5
go first.
is My Life Is a Courgette.
Oh yeah.
Which is a very beautiful cartoon that we actually watched earlier this year.
Is it a cartoon? It's a stop-motion animation.
Stop-motion animation, thank you. It's an animated movie that's under 70 minutes long, which is a very 60-something minutes, which is quite incredible. But what was really beautiful about this is it's a French movie, and it's about a little boy called Courgette who grows up with kind of an abusive mother who dies, and he subsequently ends up in an orphanage. And the movie just explores the relationship between him and the other children. It explores grief. It explores like quite destitution, really. Like, you know, it's not a typical character that you would see in a kids' cartoon these days, which tend to be very glossy. And he's a very sickly-looking, strange-looking child, and he forms these wonderful relationships with the other children and with a mentor figure that he makes. This man who looks after him, and it's just a really beautiful movie. So that's my number 5 movie, and a really unusual movie, not your typical animation. It was up for best animation at the Oscars, albeit Zootropolis beat it, and it was up for the French, what do they call the French Oscars? The Cézannes?
Les Oscars.
Les Oscars. So that's my number 5. Dave.
Okay, and if you want to hear more about our thoughts on that, we did a review of that ages ago with Chris Hewitt from Empire Magazine.
Yeah.
My number 5 of the year is Logan, the 20th Century Fox, or what was formerly known as 20th Century Fox and is now known as Disney as of yesterday.
Actually, I thought that might have been your number 1, you know. Oh, we need to say our lists are top secret, so we don't know each other's.
Do not know. Logan, for anyone who doesn't know, was Hugh Jackman's swan song as Wolverine, or otherwise known as Logan. It was a brilliant it's probably one of the best superhero movies I've ever seen.
It was amazing.
It didn't even really play as a superhero movie. It's just, it plays as a Western. It's very much rooted in its influences are Western based. There are even some very on the nose references to an old movie that Patrick Stewart is watching. Patrick Stewart is in this as an incredible performance as Professor X.
I wonder if I would love to see him or Hugh Jackman get an Oscar nomination.
I think either of them would absolutely warrant it.
Yeah, I mean, Hugh Jackman's played this character 100 times now.
They were both outstanding in this movie. There's a very touching plot with the other character who is a young girl who's an actress whose name I forget. But it was a really visceral, violent,
sad,
touching, sad. I cried. A beautiful movie, absolutely brilliantly put together by James Mangold.
Yeah, I loved it.
And that's my number 5.
And on to number 4. I'm trying to hurry Dave up. Interestingly, my number 4 is also a superhero movie.
Wait, let me guess. Wonder Woman.
Yes, it's the only one it was going to be. So Wonder Woman I've picked for multiple reasons. Firstly,
sing the theme song on the flight. Do it.
Wonder Woman in her satin tights, fighting for her rights. Right, we'll stop now. We're really annoying. So basically, Wonder Woman I picked for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it's a very, very entertaining movie. really entertaining. I loved all the fish out of water stuff when she came from her island into World War I era London with the sexism and all that. I really enjoyed the fact that she was a very, very strong female lead. What I also loved about it, it's directed by a woman, Patty Jenkins. It very, very quickly made over $100 million at the box office, which is the most a female-directed movie had ever made. So it's actually smashing glass ceilings. Now, of course, it was always going to make that much money, right? It's a huge superhero movie. But recently, the Justice League didn't actually make very much money, so it's not...
Well, relatively.
Relatively. So this movie made the money because A, yes, of course, it's a DC superhero movie, but B, because it's a fucking brilliant movie. It was fantastically directed. Gal Gadot as the lead is incredible. It was really inspiring. I found it really touching, and it's just a movie that I really enjoyed. And you'd be interested to know it's our most downloaded episode of the year. So it's smashing the glass ceiling at the cinema too.
Everyone saw it.
Everyone saw it, yeah.
But I agree with you. I thought it was absolutely excellent. It's just sweet and heartwarming and optimistic.
Yeah.
She's the character that Superman should have been.
She's amazing, and particularly having recently watched Batman v Superman, which is so crap. I can't believe they came from the same studio, and I'm just really pleased that this movie happened this year and was as successful as it was, to just prove to everyone what everyone knows all along, that female directors should be getting big budget movies. They just aren't being given them. Yeah. Okay, Dave, number 4.
My number 4 is a movie we didn't review because it's a Netflix movie and you can't walk home from Netflix. It's the Meyerowitz stories, old and new or something. There's some subtitle in brackets which I've forgotten. But the Meyerowitz stories, which is the latest by Noah Baumbach, the director-writer, who has worked a lot with Ben Stiller in the past and did Frances Ha last year, Greta Gerwig. Really, really good sort of quirky indie director. Superb writer. This stars Ben Stiller and Dustin Hoffman as half-brothers, and Dustin
Hoffman's the dad, and it stars Ben Stiller and Adam Sandler as half-brothers.
Adam Sandler as half-brothers.
Yeah.
And Dustin Hoffman as their father. And Emma Thompson, and oh my god, I forgot the actress's name.
It's
who
fine.
plays the sister, who is brilliant as well. An incredible cast. The writing is very,
The
very
writing's
good.
phenomenal.
It's funny. It's
when we watched it, we thought,
it's-
oh god, wouldn't you die to be this good a writer? Like, it's so
exactly.
clever.
It's
Yeah.
the kind of movie that makes you want to be a better writer or a writer, which we're not.
You know why it's not on my list?
Is it the gender politics around it?
Yeah, it's because you even just said I can't remember the actress's name. There's a third sibling in it. I can't remember her name either, because it's about the 3 siblings, and each sibling gets something from their own perspective. But Adam Sandler and Ben Stiller get probably 95% of the movie from their perspectives, and she gets a quick little scene from her perspective. So I just find that a bit strange.
It has very much a male focus when it's supposed to be about a family.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you.
But it's fantastically written and very well directed. And
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman was a joy to watch in it.
And Adam Sandler
Adam
was
Sandler.
probably the standout for me. I thought he was the best performance.
He was incredible.
For someone who has just been churning out for Netflix for
Absolute
so
mop.
long, you just forget that he's actually got serious dramatic credentials. He's outstanding in this.
He's fantastic, and it just made me wish Adam do some decent movies. You could
So
do
please,
it.
everybody, go watch that on Netflix if you haven't already, because it's very, very good.
Very good. Okay, my number 3 movie of the year had a lot of hoo-ha earlier this year.
Oh, it had some hoo-ha.
It did have hoo-ha, and
Would you like to define hoo-ha for us?
It won Best Picture at the Oscars, but actually La La Land was given the Oscar first. Do you recall that hoo-ha?
Yeah, Lego Batman, wasn't it?
Moonlight is my number 3, which is a movie I absolutely adored. Now, I know it was released, I think, in the States last year, but it was released in the UK this year, so for us it's a 2017 movie. And again, we've reviewed it in the past, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's just such a beautiful movie. It's shot incredibly. There's 3 actors playing the same character, each who's better than the last. It explores issues of being a black man in the States. It explores issues of being a gay man in the States, masculinity, a single mother. I mean, there's so much going on in this movie that I was really, really moved by it. I'm really blown away by it, and I was battling to have it at my number 1, but I've got a tight top 3, so I made it in 3rd. Dave, your number 3?
My number 3 is My Life as a Portrait, which you've pretty much covered. But I will say, from my point of view, firstly, movies don't need to be 2.5 hours. hours or 2 hours long. I think this 120-minute running time has become a standard, and whatever movies I feel often a lot of stuff should have been put to the cutting room floor.
Yeah.
This movie is tight. It's and it feels fleshed out. It's fully, the characters are better formed than some 2.5-hour movies I've seen, and you don't come out feeling like it's a slog. It was such a perfect running time.
And it was so emotional, not just about the running time. I do recall tears streaming down your face at the end of this movie.
It's so.
Dave was very moved by this.
I was just as a father to be at the time. It really got to me. All the voice performances, I will say, are very, very good, because that can often be a stumbling block for international movies when they don't go with a subtitle version and they hire the English voice cast.
Yeah.
But they hired them very well. You've got
Nick Offerman.
Nick Offerman,
yeah, he was
is
fantastic.
in there. A few others. Anyway, very good voice cast. Beautifully written, beautifully animated, very interesting art style. The kids kind of look very weird, and all their noses are different colours.
Yeah,
and
it's really cute, and their noses match their ears. It's beautiful. If you haven't seen it, I advise you to see it. And if you're not going to get a chance, just look up the trailer and look at how beautiful the animation is, I think.
Yes, and lastly, this is one of those movies that works as a kids' movie, and it's, even though it deals with very adult themes, a very dark subject matter, and like the best kids' movies, it doesn't pull its punches. It just sort of deals with stuff like grief and loneliness and bullying and tragedy in a very clear and very understandable and emotional way. And I think it's important for young kids to confront these issues.
And they talk about sex. Now we are
Oscar's waking up here, so we might have to take a break. Okay.
So we realise we've only got 2 movies left to do. There we go, he's gone back to sleep.
We're okay.
So
All
we
right,
are
Cathy.
powering through this, guys. We spent
2?
a lot of time on our TV one, which is too much, so we're making up for that. My number 2 is Get Out, which we didn't review on this podcast, so we never made it to the cinema. So we've subsequently watched it on demand, and it is an absolutely perfect movie. It is so clever, so interesting. Horror isn't a genre that I take to or that I watch, but in this instance I watched it because of the reviews. What's so interesting about this movie is it's this really dark exploration of race in America, again actually, but much different from Moonlight. It really explores, particularly again, like the black male experience in America, but how white people can treat black people and how deep-seated and how far the racism goes back. But it's a really dark take on it, and like, I'm not going to spoil the plot for people who haven't seen it, because I think it didn't get much of a cinematic release in the UK, so a lot of people won't have seen it, but it's really, really clever, and it's like bits of it are quite funny and bits of it are a bit scary, and I just found it to be such a perfect movie. I can't recommend it high enough. And Dave, you'd be pleased to remember it has a very short running time also. Yeah.
Less is more, guys.
Less is more. So yeah, Get Out is my number 2. Dave, what's your number 2?
Okay, my number 2. So what I've done for my number 2 is I've pulled the same shenanigans that you pulled last year on your number 2.
Yeah.
So if anyone remembers our 2016 movie review, Cathy put both Zootropolis and Moana in her number 2 spot.
Yeah.
And I called absolute bullshit on this. But if you're going to do that, then I'm going to do that. And
fine.
I'm putting Moonlight and Get Out in my number 2 spot
interesting.
together, because I think they actually make quite an interesting double bill for the reasons that you've just outlined.
Okay.
They've both very interesting takes on the black experience in America.
Yeah.
And particularly how that relates to white people's perceptions of them. Probably more so Get Out in that regard. I think Moonlight is probably
it's about the male experience.
More about the male experience, and particularly for somebody who's coming out. So they're kind of not, they're not a perfect match, but they're both.
But you wanted to get them both in your top 5 is where we're going with this.
There's so many I wanted to squeeze in, so I called the same shenanigans.
No, it's clever. You've managed 6 into 5. I'm into it.
But they both have strong male black leads,
which is rare in Hollywood. Sadly.
Superb performances in both. Oscar-winning supporting actor on the other side from the actor who plays Remy in House of Cards, whose name I can never remember.
This is what happens because we've quickly decided to do this on the plane. We don't have as much research as we normally do, so apologies for that.
But Moonlight was a beautiful character study, interesting performances that made you you felt like it was the same person, even when there was a huge transformation at one point.
Yeah.
There's a huge leap in time, and you almost don't recognise the main character, but then he slowly, you realise it's a facade that he's built up over the years, and slowly that breaks down, and
he's
he comes
such a
out again.
Character.
That sweet little boy comes out again, and it's absolutely
just fell in love with him. And this Moonlight actually is a really long movie, but we didn't mind, and I could have sat through another hour of it because it really warranted the length. And it was just really, really beautiful and heartbreaking, and I'm so glad that it did win the Oscar, despite all the shenanigans around it, which were ridiculous.
We just said the word shenanigans 40 times.
Yeah.
And just a quick note on Get Out, I thought it was so clever. Jordan Peele is the director, who's one half of the Key and Peele comedy sketch duo.
So clever, yeah. He wrote it as well.
Very talented. I thought it was just so darkly funny and weird and twisty. And absolutely stonking.
Fantastic,
brilliant. Cathy, what's your number one?
Okay, my number one is The Big Sick.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah. Is that your number one too? Because then we can just both talk about it. No, okay.
It's on my list. It got so close.
I'll talk
about it later.
I love The Big Sick. Again, it's one we have reviewed on the podcast, so you can go back and listen to that. And we had a special guest on that one as well, Helen O'Hara. And what I love about The Big Sick, right, is when it's done right, rom-com is hands down my favourite genre, but it is never done right. Like, it's so hard at this point. It was really done right in the 90s. Like, there was a good rom-coms were being turned out in the 90s. Like, I would say My Best Friend's Wedding, for example, and Sleepless in Seattle. They're just two I can think of on the top of my tired head. But I love it when they're done right. And this movie was so sweet. It was so funny. Like, it was proper laugh out loud funny. It was so well written. It has such a good script. It had amazing performances from all the actors.
Kumail Nanjiani is who wrote it with his wife Emily Gordon.
Yes.
And it's about their actual real life experience.
Real life experience of him.
He plays himself
as a Muslim man, son of an immigrant, living in the States. She's like a white. We don't know, but we're guessing. We're kind of implied some sort of Christian religion. So there's like religious barriers. But that's not even the main plot. The main plot is actually that she gets quite ill and he ends up spending time with her parents while she's in a coma. But it really, again, explores, and it's so important this year, given everything that's going on in the world and in America. Again, race is explored in a really interesting, subtle way. It's one really laugh-out-loud joke about 9/11. And overall, it just really made me laugh. I love that a husband and wife wrote it together. I thought that was really fantastic. There was exceptional performances for supporting characters of Holly Hunter and Ray. Everybody loves Ray Romano. He's amazing playing her dad. And look, I should have more to say about my number one movie of the year. I really apologise about how tired I am. So if you want to hear a proper review of it, please go back and listen to it. And please watch this movie if you haven't watched it, because it's so sweet and funny. And I just love that it wasn't just clever on the surface level. There was a lot to say. There's deep messages in it, and it's a really, really worthy movie. And I'm really expecting a Best Screenplay nomination for this one in the Oscars.
I really hope so too. Yeah. I agree. This is what rom-coms are supposed to be.
It's supposed to be romantic and funny. Go figure.
Pay attention to every rom-com that has the main characters leaning against each other backwards on a white backdrop. Bold red font
with Matthew McConaughey on the poster. Yeah. Whether or not he's in the movie.
Well, that was pre-McConaissance.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know what? He was better in those movies than he is in some of his new ones.
Oh,
yeah.
Snap.
Anyway, what's your number one? Wait, let me guess.
Go on. Good podcast.
Yeah, right. I've gone blank.
Radio silence.
Ignore. Rewind. Delete that bit. Okay.
Anything?
What's your What's your number one?
Well, I will say that you said that rom-com is your genre of choice.
Yeah.
And this was an outstanding example of that. Sci-fi is my genre of choice, and Blade Runner 2049
of course,
is absolutely my favourite movie this year. Not only is this a brilliant bit of sci-fi, it is a huge budget movie that exists within the Hollywood system. That is another example of on paper, this is another example of the kind of laziness that we're seeing time and time again in the studio system, which is what is an old property that people have affection and nostalgia for, that we can wheel out, bring back the old cast for. Literally, Harrison Ford has done exactly this with Star Wars.
Yeah, and he is doing it with Indiana Jones.
He's doing it with Indiana Jones. And let's just slap
Ryan Gosling, he's hot.
And they're called, I think somebody has nicknamed these kind of movies Lega sequels.
Yeah.
Which so it's essentially like retreads. Like The Force Awakens was just A New Hope again. Jurassic World was just Jurassic Park again. We're seeing a lot of these kind of things. But Blade Runner 2049 is not that. It is very much a Blade Runner movie. It's very much a sequel, though. It sticks very closely to what happened in the original and moves things on, but looks and feels exactly like that world as if it had progressed 30 years. I won't get into detail. We did a review of this, and I talked in length about the aesthetic of it and the production design, and it is just perfect. The director, Denis Villeneuve, is who last year my favourite film was Arrival, so this is 2 years in a row he's made my favourite movie. He's fast.
He'll be very flattered.
My favourite director.
I've heard from him. He's really flattered.
Yeah, will you tell him that I was asking for
him?
Roger Deakins, the cinematographer, just some beautiful, like almost any scene, any still from this movie would make a piece of art you'd put up in your home.
And I think a really, really strong performance from Ryan Gosling as well. He did a really good job with this. And it's interesting, this movie actually didn't make, I think it cost don't quote me on this, albeit I'm reporting this. $150 million to make something like that, and I think was struggling to make back the money because they did a really interesting, which I approve of, because I know, as we say, like it's one of these legacy prequels, but they did an interesting marketing campaign. They didn't choose to, like, they did a trailer that was, actually intelligent and thoughtful and really in line with the first movie, as you said, and they weren't just...
It doesn't tell you the plot.
No, it doesn't tell you the plot, and they weren't just going, oh look, here's a Ryan Gosling movie, which is what they could have done. So I really admire the marketing of it. They really, really has a strong vision. It's very in line with the original, which we watched just before it, because I hadn't seen it and Dave hadn't seen it in a long time. And yeah, I mean, it's not on my list, but I definitely really enjoyed it. I mean, it's a beautiful movie.
I think the marketing was strong, but was a little bit safe. I wish they hadn't revealed the Harrison Ford thing ahead of time. I think that would have made a brilliant surprise if it had just happened in the movie.
Yeah, but look, that's never going to happen. If you're bringing back an actor like Harrison Ford, they're not going to spoil it.
Also, the music.
I mean, they are going to spoil it.
I kind of wish they'd brought Vangelis back, who did the first score of the first movie. Instead, they went for Hans Zimmer, who just scores every movie now.
Yeah, he's really
a little disappointing, but. Just please go watch it. Not enough people went to watch it in the cinema, and like you said, it didn't perform, and it's sad because it means we're not going to see any big risks anymore with
Look, it's not sad that people didn't see this movie, to me. Like, ultimately, hello, there's the Aer Lingus announcement. No, I'm saying it's not sad that people didn't go and see it. Like, it's still a huge budget movie with huge Hollywood stars. Like, it's not exactly like an artistic indie movie.
No, yeah, but it's sad that if the accountants are going to look at this and say this underperformed, it didn't do well for us, then why didn't it perform? Oh, maybe it was because it's too cerebral, it's too long, it's too whatever.
Yeah.
Those factors are going to play into the kind of decisions that are made when they're working in their films for the next 5 years.
Well, the good thing is with the big six, it was cheap to make and made them a shitload of money, so that's a good thing.
We're going to end up seeing Police Academy 9 before we see
I'd watch Police Academy 9
2067.
Okay, now we're going to make hay while the baby sleeps and before the plane starts to land. I think this is
the second time you've said that expression as if it's a real expression.
Oh, right. So there, I'm very pleased we recorded our top 5, and we'll be back again with worst movies, disappointing movies, and some honourable mentions.
And you're going to hear from some of our guests of the year telling us about their best and worst movies.
Okay, bye.
Thanks very much.
Hello, Dave and Cathy and the Cinemile. This is Chris Hewitt from the Empire Podcast, and I'm recording this on my walk to the bus stop in tribute to your walks. And I just thought, it'd be nice to talk about my favourite films of the year, as requested. My favourite film of the year, without a shadow of a doubt, hit me right in the feels, was Paddington 2. Glorious sequel, massive bear hug of a movie. I may have laughed, I may have cried, but I will never admit it. And that just pipped, even though I said hands down, it just pipped Get Out for me. Get Out was my number one film of the year for so long. Such a great film. Wonderful mix of horror and comedy, satire, brilliantly directed, great performances. And what else did I like? La La Land. Just to confuse your American listeners, yes, La La Land is a 2017 film here in the UK. I love the songs, love pretty much everything about it. And yes, my wife and I did dance down the street one day singing Another Day of Sun. And yes, I did swing around a lamppost, because I'm that cool. Right, I'm rambling now. Worst films of the year? Without a shadow of a doubt, Baywatch. Just one of the worst comedies. When you see people floundering around trying to desperately improvise their way out of a situation, that ain't good. And then The Dark Tower, an adaptation of the beloved Stephen King series that felt like a personal insult to me. I finally caught up with it on a plane, and I was so bad I wanted to walk out. Boom, boom, boom. There's a cracking joke at which to end. Wish you all the very, very best. And Oscar, of course. And have a very Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Bye.
Oh, hi, I'm Helen from the Scummy Mummies podcast. My favourite film of 2017 was the Trolls film, because I have children and I drag them along to my local cinema, the Pick and Plex. I loved the Trolls. It was joyous, funny, brilliant movie, brilliant songs, and I left skipping out of the cinema, so I always think that's a good sign. And the worst film of 2017 was Bad Mums 2. It was a piece of steaming dog turd. Do not see it. It is a travesty of the art form. Goodbye.
My name is Scroobius Pip and I host the Distraction Pieces podcast. My best and worst films of 2017. I did a whole podcast actually of my best, so there's a load to choose from, but if I have to select one, I think I'm going to go with Beach Rats. So yeah, a really good film set in Brooklyn about a young man kind of somewhat confused about his sexuality, but wonderful, wonderful film. And my worst, sadly, I'm going to have to go with The Mummy.
Hey everybody, this is Linda, Cathy's mom, big Cinemile enthusiast and an occasional guest. So here's my best and worst of 2017. Best I'd say was Wonder Woman, simply for the enjoyment factor. I found it kind of balanced and inspiring without being too cheesy. So yeah, definitely my number one. And my least favourite I think was Murder on the Orient Express. I found it tragically overacted and I was really quite bored during it. It was as dull as a long train ride. So that's it from me. I wish you all a really happy 2018. Bye.
All right, we're back. We have landed safe and sound in Ireland. We're currently walking down the seafront in Bray, County Wicklow.
Yes, it's beautiful. My dad lives in Bray, so we're here for a couple of days, and we had kind of fantasised about recording a special Christmas episode along the Bray seafront, which is really gorgeous, but we thought, nah, it's going to be pissing rain, it won't work.
It's a stunning day. The waves are coming in.
Yeah.
There's a train going around the hill there.
We've just drank a load of coffee because we've been up really early and flying with the baby. So yeah, we're ready to go on the rest of our 2017 review.
Yes, so we've done our top 5. We're going to look back at some other movies we wanted to mention that we loved but didn't make the top 5. Kathy, what's on your list?
So honourable mention, number 1, I had Logan, which was in your top 5, which as I said I really enjoyed, really liked Logan. I also had Fences, the Denzel Washington, Viola Davis, which was a movie I really enjoyed as well. We've also reviewed. Like a fantastic film, but ultimately at the end of the day it was adapted from a play, and it felt like a play.
Wish I'd seen the play.
Boss Baby I've written down because
okay.
Because Boss Baby, we went to see it. We were so happy that day. So it's actually for like personal reasons I've done this movie. So I was pregnant. We just won the day before the British Podcast Award for Best New Podcast, and so we were going to go to the cinema, and then we decided to see that, basically because I was pregnant, and we wanted to put out an episode because we just won this award, and we just had the best time and we enjoyed it so much, and it was a very special day for me, so that's why I put Boss Baby in.
It's a fun movie. I mean, it
was fun. Do you know what?
It
was just the experience I loved. And then I have Marjorie Prime, which isn't one that we saw together, but I watched it.
What's that?
It's actually another play adaptation, and you caught the end of it when I was watching it. It stars Gina Davis and Tim Robbins, and I'm terrible. I haven't got the name of the lead actress who's so amazing in it. She's this older actress who's phenomenal, and I've forgotten her name. Anyway, it's a really interesting play adaptation. It's a bit of a sci-fi. It has John Hamm in it, and it's set place in the future, and it's basically that people can get holograms of their deceased relatives and kind of recapture memories through them, and John Hamm plays a hologram, and it's a really interesting movie.
I've looked it up. Her name is Lois Smith.
Thank you. Lois Smith, great performance. And then I have Dina, which is another one that we didn't watch together, that I watched on my own.
You've been watching stuff without me.
I know, and I've been trying to watch all these, this movie Dina did so well at Sundance, but like we missed it. We've missed so many movies this year about having a baby, so our list was a bit tighter to pick from, so I've been watching a lot on the small screen. And Dina is this incredible documentary. It's just so interesting. It's about this couple, and they both have Asperger's, and it's following them as they are due to get married and just exploring their relationship with very unique access in that real cinema verite way of just pure observation, which I really enjoy. And it's quite interesting because they both have Asperger's, but they're very different people. So anyway, I recommend Dina.
I can't believe you just said cinema verite.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's the only way I can describe it, and I know that sounds ridiculous. Basically means they're filming it as it is with no intervention. And my last
showing
one,
off because you have a film degree.
My last one is Lion, which was a movie I really enjoyed this year, the Australian movie starring Dev Patel and Nicole Kidman, and was a very beautiful true story, and very cinematically beautiful because a lot of it was shot in India and a lot was shot in Tasmania, so it was a really visually interesting movie.
Yeah, really nicely put together.
Okay, Dave, honourable mentions.
Alright, I got loads. Dunkirk, which kind of just fell out of my top 5. I thought this is one of the best cinema experiences I've ever had.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was, we reviewed it on this podcast, and it was just like everyone said it. It was just loud and huge. We saw it in the biggest screen in London, in the BFI IMAX, and it was just enveloping. It's the closest I've come to actually feeling like I was in a war. Now, since we did that, your dad actually came on and did a very well and thoughtful
historical rebuttal
on it, and which I obviously can't disagree with, and I actually
because we know nothing about history.
He was completely right, and I wasn't looking at it from that point of view. But
cinematically, it was fabulous.
Cinematically, Christopher Nolan is just big and bold and amazing. To the point where like the boats in it were like boats that actually rescued people at that time.
Yeah, it was
the
cool.
Authenticity is just amazing.
And we did a really long review of that one for anyone who's interested.
The Big Sick, I think you've kind of covered it off. That was your number one movie of the year. I loved that as well. I love Kumail Nanjiani, love Silicon Valley. He's just a tour de force, and I just wish nothing but good things for him.
Yeah, he's
and
amazing.
His Twitter account's very funny. Spider-Man Homecoming. As you all know, I'm a big Marvel guy, and
as you all know, you're assuming that
well,
the audience retains information on your Marvel preferences.
Well, a lot of you have heard my batshit Marvel movie marathon, and if you haven't, go and listen to that. I thought this was really great. Tom Holland was a real standout in Captain America Civil War. It was a lovely surprise, and it was just a bold, confident Spider-Man movie that was actually set in a high school and starred someone who wasn't 30.
I did enjoy it, but I've completely forgotten it. Why I enjoyed it mainly is because we went with Scroobius Pip and walked around a car park together reviewing it. So
yeah,
that was fun.
It was great to meet him. And Michael Keaton was brilliant as Birdman.
Yeah, that was
again.
Good.
Under the Shadow was a great little horror movie we saw on, I think we saw it on Netflix earlier in the year. It's an Iranian horror film.
Oh, I forgot about that. That was good.
I would absolutely recommend it. It's
really good.
It's very much it's set in Iran in the 80s, and it's about a woman who's essentially housebound in an apartment that's being haunted, and it's...
Well, that was terrifying. I've just remembered.
It's really scary. You've blocked it out, haven't you?
And it was all a big metaphor for like the treatment of women in that.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a really good movie.
And as the best horror films, it's got something to say. Baby Driver was
awesome.
Fast and fun.
Yeah.
Loved that. Great soundtrack. Wonder Woman, we've kind of said enough on that.
I just think I meant to say, but I was a bit distracted on the plane. What I like about Wonder Woman as well is that it just goes to show when they released Batman. Sorry, I'm doing something with the baby here. When they did the big terrible Justice League, do you know what? Dead right that Justice League didn't make the money they wanted it to, and it just proves that when you there's a reward for good filmmaking versus bad filmmaking, which restored my faith in cinema goers a bit. Because if Wonder Woman had done as well as Justice League, despite one being, over 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and one being critically derided, it would have been kind of disappointing. So it's good to know that people actually won't show up if the movies are shit.
Yeah, good word of mouth actually matters. Lion, I think you've covered off. I thought it was a beautiful. For anyone who's a parent, it's even more powerful. I cried at that one as well.
You cried all of
I
them.
cry a lot. I didn't cry at the Lego Batman movie, but I had great fun at it. It was really energetic. Wasn't quite as good as the Lego movie, which was my favourite movie of whenever that came out. But it was great fun. Will Arnett, really funny. What else? I've got loads of stuff here. La La Land came out earlier this year. And while it wasn't quite the sort of slam dunk that you would have expected from the complete hyperbolic praise that it was getting across the board and sweeping every award
It even got
ceremony.
an extra Oscar that it hadn't won.
Yeah, exactly. I really liked it. I thought the music was like earworming into my brain for weeks afterwards. It was like really sweet
the music's
and simple.
fabulous, yeah.
The quick... all right, I know I need to wrap this up.
You really need to wrap I'm beckoning to Dave here to wrap this up. It's
You're like,
really cold.
shut up. The Girl with All the Gifts was a really clever British zombie movie.
That was good, yeah.
And I'm so sick of zombie movies, but this was...
Well, I think The Girl with All the Gifts came out last year, so man, you're way off.
Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, we watched
Forget
it this year.
Scratch that. That's
Sorry.
not allowed on this episode.
Forget you even heard this.
Funnily enough, I actually re-listened to our 2016 roundup ahead of this.
And I mentioned
and
it
you
in
mentioned
that,
that you wanted to see it. And
Well,
you couldn't
I
remember
finally
the name,
did.
but you couldn't remember the name of it, so you failed both times on that movie.
Here's another great title. I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore was a Netflix movie, which I
I've
quite
not seen that
enjoyed
one.
with Elijah Wood and...
Oh, I did see that one.
You watched it with me?
You're listening to my inner monologue
blocking
here.
these movies
Yeah.
from
I
my
just forget
memory.
about movies I watch on Netflix because it's that small screen experience versus the cinema. As much as I like them, I don't know, they don't resonate with me as strongly as something I see in the cinema. I know that doesn't make sense. But
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, did you see that the new Will Smith movie that just come out exclusively on Netflix? It's like a fantasy thing called Bright. Valerian. I did an episode on that with Stuart Higgins from the Science Not the Science podcast. Scientist Not the Science. And I had such a blast in that. It was really terrible, mostly, but it was also amazing. So good. Lastly, a documentary which I saw recently on Netflix, which was only 40 minutes long, and it was called Long Shot. And this was recommended to me by Lee Gant, former guest of this podcast. Go watch Long Shot, but don't read anything about it. Don't even read the synopsis. It's very surprising and powerful. I really enjoyed it. And now,
on to most
I
disappointing.
will stop talking.
Most disappointing. Number one for me, Baywatch. We were so upset by Baywatch. I mean, I in particular, I think, was upset, and I was the one who actually said, please can we leave this movie, and we left 40 minutes before the end. It was vile, disgusting, gross. I can't think of any more words in that vein. It was the worst thing I've ever seen The Rock in. It was the worst thing I've ever seen Zac Efron in, and I'm including High School Musical in that.
You haven't seen Dirty Grandpa, though.
True, I haven't seen Dirty Grandpa.
And neither have I, nor do I want to.
And I don't want to. And it was just an all-round horrible experience. We did a podcast on that, which actually we both really enjoyed doing because it was fun to kind of trash it. But yeah, very disappointing movie. And
What's
I was
up with
really
Zac
pumped.
Efron? It's a
Zac
really
Efron,
talented guy.
He's in a movie now, though, on a side note, that looks really good. Him and Hugh
Showman.
Jackman. Yeah, it looks good. Anyway, do you know what? On reflection, I've put in disappointing, even though it's not a bad movie. I've put in Paddington 2.
Okay.
I just was a bit disappointed. It didn't have the magic of the first one for me. We've done a full review on that one, myself and my friend Anna. And then I know you mentioned La La Land in your honourable mentions, but for me that goes into most disappointing because part of this, again, it's not a bad movie, but it was around my expectation and it was too overblown. And as we discussed in our review, I wasn't a massive fan of the ending, and I just think now that the hype's died down, I don't actually think it's going to be remembered as much as a classic as maybe people were expecting it to be, though maybe that's just my theory. We'll come back to it in 20 years.
I thought his previous movie, the drumming movie,
that was
Miles
so much
Teller,
better.
was
yeah,
much better.
Much better.
And not enough people are
But
talking
this is because
about that.
Hollywood loves retrospective old Hollywood, fantastic movies, and it was about Hollywood, like it's also self-indulgent. That's why this resonated much more with people than that drumming movie,
Hollywood
which name I forget.
Loves staring in the mirror.
Yeah. Okay, Dave, your most disappointing.
My most disappointing is also Baywatch, because Like, I love The Rock and I love Zac Efron, and this looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it should have been. And I loved 21 Jump Street, which was essentially the same formula. They just looked at an old
with
property.
completely different
Let's
talent.
make it a comedy. The wrong writers and director here.
Like, to me,
it was
right,
just garbage.
when you're fondling a corpse's testicles, you know this movie ain't going to be funny, and you should be absolutely ashamed of yourself for any part in it.
And look, we're not above.
We're not above fondling corpses' testicles, but we don't do it on screen. We don't have the gall to try and make it funny. We know it's a sad thing we're doing.
We'll fondle some testicles. We're not above like gross out comedy. I still think American Pie is one of my favourite movies.
American Pie is one of your favourite movies?
One from my past.
You mean when you were like 15?
When I was 15,
Look,
it was.
American Pie was funny in its own right. Baywatch wasn't funny. That's the difference. If you're going to be gross, make sure you're being funny about it.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
And my other one was Split, the M. Night Shyamalan.
Oh yeah, we didn't review that for the podcast, but we've
watched it this year. With James McAvoy as a sort of a lunatic with multiple personalities. This trailer was fun to me, so I was quite excited for it, and I still hold out hope for M. Night. Even though
he's movie a couple of years ago about the kids who visited their grandparents, and that was good.
Oh yeah, grandmother's house, or what was that called?
That's not what it was called. I don't know what The Visitor or something.
The Visit.
Yeah,
was that it? It was okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the dude's spiraling out of control slowly ever since The Sixth Sense, which must have been a fluke now in retrospect.
And I was really annoyed because I used to like James McAvoy, right? And after Split, and then I just watched what's that movie with Charlize Theron? Atomic Blonde. I just watched that the other day, which actually, I meant to put in my honourable mention, the action scenes in Atomic Blonde were so cool, and Charlize Theron was so cool in that movie, so massive kudos to her. But James McAvoy, I'm over it now. I'm sick of him. I thought he was terrible in both of those movies, so yeah, I'm sure he'd be very upset to hear that, obviously. And
sorry,
is that
James.
Is that your your most disappointing?
That was it. I mean, largely, I'd just like to also mention it this and Split. One of the it was a kind of an okay movie. It kind of got worse and worse as it went along.
I mean, the end was so
volatile. I think 10 Cloverfield Lane is a much better example of a bottle sort of horror movie, which is what this wants to be. And the end just tanked for me. Like,
it's
went
not
off a cliff.
10 Cloverfield Lane cannot be compared to this movie.
I won't spoil it for anybody, but
it's shit.
The worst shoehorned piece of Hollywood garbage that I've ever seen.
At the very end.
That's a little bit of hyperbole.
That is a bit of hyperbole. Okay, worst movie for me, I've said enough about it, Baywatch. Dave? Worst?
Yeah, Baywatch is on my worst as well. It's the worst movie of the year.
I only have one worst.
By far.
Oh no, I have a second worst. I shouldn't have started this train of thought.
I've got a second worst
because I can't remember the name of the movie.
Go on, describe it to me.
I think it was a straight to TV.
Use your words,
Cathy. Straight to TV release with Jamie Dornan, and it was called Flight of Love or something like that. And it was billed as a romantic comedy. I foolishly turned it on, and it stars Jamie Dornan. And
how desperate were you?
I was really desperate, and it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So I can't remember the name of it, but that's in my worst list.
Never heard of it. Well, on that note, my other one was 50 Shades Darker.
Oh, I forgot about 50 Shades
which
Darker.
also stars.
That's really weird.
Jamie Dornan.
2 Jamie Dornan movies. Jamie Dornan, sort yourself out.
Sorry,
man.
Jamie Dornan.
You've gone from The Fall to falling to the bottom of our list.
To Fell. The Fall also, on that note, we thought Jamie Dornan was superb in season 1 of The Fall. Then that show got really bad, and we
then he opened his mouth in season 2.
Then we realised the only reason he was so good was because he wasn't talking.
He was very menacing,
was just
silent,
looking very broody.
So yeah, the 50 Shades Darker is one of my favourite podcasts we ever did, because we went with all my girlfriends and went to the pub, and it was so much fun.
I bet that's on your guilty pleasures list.
I don't have a guilty pleasures list.
Did you not do a guilty pleasure? Did you not read the brief?
We didn't. Did we do guilty pleasures?
Yeah, Cathy.
For the movie list?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't have a guilty pleasure
right.
list. I haven't done one.
Well, you're going to have to listen to mine. I've got 3. Have you anything else to say about 50 Shades Darker?
No, but it's not a guilty pleasure because I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed the episode that we recorded.
It's garbage.
Yeah, it's not a guilty pleasure.
It's awful. Like, it's absolutely awful.
Yeah,
but
actually, probably something like Snatched would be a guilty pleasure for me.
I actually think that I found 50 Shades Darker. I hadn't seen the first one, but I found
you missed out, man.
Troubling. I actually was troubled by it.
Yes, terrible.
By this representation of if young women are watching this,
it's not young women,
or
Dave.
teenagers,
it's middle-aged women. You should know better.
But what example is this? The protagonist is basically just being abused by this man, both like physically and mentally. Like he's like reads her texts.
But this is from the vein of romance.
Really romantic.
It's from the vein of romance where they posit that it's romantic if your boyfriend's insanely jealous and won't let you speak to anybody else. It's that kind of...
but it's also just one of the least watchable movies I've ever seen. They tried to shoehorn in like peril. There's a whole... Spoiler alert, who gives a shit? But there's a whole bit where like his plane... Mr. Gray's
it's like
plane
Christian
goes
might have
down.
died. Next scene, Christian's fine. Okay,
He was literally one scene afterwards.
Drawn out the tension slightly.
His plane crashes, which was terrible CG, and then the next scene was, oh my God, is Christian dead? And then he just walked through the hotel.
That was actually my favourite episode of our podcast because Dave read out extracts from the book, which was truly disturbing. Me and all my girlfriends were hanging out. We all went to the pub together, and Dave was like one of the few men in the cinema, so that was quite fun.
Yes, and right, my guilty pleasures list, which Cathy just forgot to do.
We did guilty pleasures on our TV review, but we didn't do it in our movie review last year. I can't keep up with this.
Got plenty of guilty pleasures here.
Tell us your guilty pleasures.
Firstly, Fast and Furious 8.
Oh yes,
or 8 Fast, 8 Furious,
but
or whatever.
But do you not remember how bored we were of that movie by the end?
No, I had great fun with it. I mean, it was too long and silly, but like it's a guilty pleasure. It was like they're brilliant and terrible at the same time. I just like. Oh, so good. Vin Diesel just saying the word. Like, and The Rock and Jason Statham are going to have a spin-off movie, which I can't
really
wait
look forward
for.
to that. And I mean, Vince, what's his face? What's his name?
Vin Diesel.
Vin Diesel. All he says is, "This is my family." That's all he says in that movie.
What I love about those movies as well is Vin Diesel and The Rock apparently hate each other to the point where they're not in any scenes together and they've had to cut around them.
That's really interesting. I would pick The Rock any day.
Me too, but like Vin Diesel is what makes those movies brilliant because he's taking it so seriously.
I know,
like,
I
think he really believes in these things.
I think he's like Daniel Day-Lewis, right? He like really gets into a role, so he acts like that all the time, just so that when the Fast and the Furious rolls out every 12 months, he can be really true to the character.
I think he's stuck in the noughties. He thinks like smashing Coronas and hanging with your bros and like taking a sweet ride with your best chick at your side is like the way to live your life. Power to the max, Vin.
Yeah.
Kong Skull Island
forgot about
was
that.
a bit throwaway, but I really enjoyed it. Maybe that's not even a guilty pleasure, but like,
I've completely forgotten every single thing about that movie.
I just thought it was great fun. I loved the Vietnam stuff. Great soundtrack, like a lot of Creedence. Check it out on VOD or whatever if anyone missed that at the cinema. And I watched a movie last week called Hardcore Henry, which is really stupid, but
was that
great
that
fun.
First-person shooter movie?
Yeah, it's essentially.
That's not 2017 release.
Was it not? Did it not come out
you
this
can't
year?
just talk about things that you watched.
Why not?
Like, oh great, I watched My Best Friend's Wedding last week. That's in my top movies of the year.
Sorry,
no.
I thought that was this year.
Okay.
Whatever. It was kind of like terrible and pointless, but kind of interesting. Like some of the action scenes were really well put together. Right, that's it.
That's it. Okay, hopefully we've kept this briefer than our TV episode, which after
we burned through that.
Recorded it, realised we've been recording for 7 hours. And thank you so much to everyone who's listened to us this year. We've had such an amazing year with this podcast. We've been so happy with it. We love all the feedback we get from you guys.
Yeah, keep talking to us. We're on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, or you can at the Cinemile, by the way, and or you can email us. We're thecinemile@gmail.com. And thanks to all our guests who came on this year and for submitting their best and worst movies of the year.
Yes.
We will finish with more of them.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening and Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry
and Happy New Year.
Bye.
Hopefully the movies will be better next year.
Well, hopefully we'll get to the cinema next year, given that we do a cinema podcast. I can't believe that since we had a baby, we've managed to put out about an episode every 10 days.
What if we just changed this to a baby podcast?
No,
We'll just talk about our baby.
That would be the worst podcast of all time.
Which is all we do anyway, by the way, when we're not talking to you.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Hello, my name is Alison Spittle and I host the podcast called The Alison Spittle Show. My least favourite film this year was the documentary Casting John Bonet. I had to switch it off when they had children hammering a watermelon to show what it would be like to hit another child on the head. I just felt it was a bit too much for me. My favourite film this year was the last film I watched, which is called What's it called? Brickleberry Bear. Do you know what? That's not my favourite film. If I can't remember the name of it. Detroit. I cried a lot at Detroit. Will Poulter played an absolute bastard in it. Bye.
Merry Christmas, Cinemile Podcast. Sam from the Picturehouse podcast here, and thinking about my favourite film of 2017, I'm going to say Girls Trip, which is a really wonderful comedy starring Queen Latifah, Jada Pinkett Smith, and introducing, to me at least, a really wonderful actor and comedian, Tiffany Haddish. She's so good. I loved it. I laughed and laughed and laughed. Saw it in the cinema. Had a great time. It's actually out now on iTunes and DVD and Blu-ray and all that stuff. So it's a perfect Christmas gift. Least favourite film of 2017. I'm sticking with the all-female comedy. I'm going to say Rough Night. A really lame film. None of the actors have any chemistry. It stars Scarlett Johansson, Kate McKinnon, Ilana Glazer. They're all brilliant in their own right. They're not great in this film. Yeah, avoid. A comedy with no jokes is a awful, awful thing. It should not exist. So please burn Rough Night. Please go watch Girls Trip and have a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year.
Hi, so I'm Ellie from the Scummy Mummies. My film of this year was Blade Runner 2049. Not just because it was the only film me and my husband got to go and see at the cinema because we've got small children, but I just loved it. I loved just the atmosphere of it and the music and the sort of fact it rained all the time and the robots. Who doesn't love murderous robots? I mean, it's one of my favourite things. So I love that. My least favourite film of the year was Jurassic World, which I know came out a couple of years ago, but again, I don't get out much. And I love dinosaurs, love dinosaur movies, but fuck me, like just watching this woman chase dinosaurs around a park in white stilettos was a real lowlight of 2017 for me.
Hey guys, this is Kobi here from Flixwatcher podcast and brand new podcast, The Wire Stripped, which I do with a young chap called David Corkery. I don't know if you've heard of him. Anyway, on to my favourite films of 2017, starting with the big ones, which were Logan, and also special mention to Spider-Man Homecoming, Wonder Woman and Thor Ragnarok. Smaller films, I guess, were Death of Stalin, which was super dark and super funny. Saw that twice at the cinema because I just had to. And I also saw Baby Driver twice, thinking about it. But I'm not sure if I'll see that again post Kevin Spacey-gate. Going back to the big films, which is the worst film, is Justice League. That is a massive, dripping, piling, steaming mess of camel shit. Not as bad as Batman vs Superman, Dawn of Justice, though. Sorry, Cathy. Okay, cheers, guys. Love the show.
Hi, Cathy and Dave. Happy Christmas, Merry New Year. This is Helen O'Hara of the Empire Podcast here. So my film of 2017 is The Death of Stalin. I thought it was brilliant and weird and funny and terrifying and just cleverly put together. And my worst film of the year has got to be Transformers 5. Was that Age of Extinction? I wish it was anyway. It was a bloody awful film. It made no sense, and despite having gorgeous effects, I was bored out of my mind. So I hope never to see it again. Here is to a much better and film-filled 2018.
This is Matt Coyne, also known as Man vs. Baby. So my favourite film of 2017 is Dunkirk. Obviously, it tells a really important and an incredible story, but just as a thriller, there are ticking clocks everywhere in this film, and I was completely gripped by Dunkirk. My worst film of 2017 is The Emoji Movie. This is a horror film in the truest sense. I was actually sent this on DVD by a PR company to review, and I did post a video review of it that consisted of me watching the first 5 minutes and then taking the disc out onto my driveway and reversing my car over it. It's. I would prefer to watch a builder take a shit for 2 hours than watch any more than the 5 minutes that I saw of this shocker. So yeah, The Emoji Movie. And Transformers: The Last Night, because Transformers.
big thank you to all of our contributors on this episode. Thank you so much. In particular to my mother, the best guest as always. And if you would like to give us a Christmas present, we would greatly appreciate if you could subscribe to us on iTunes if you don't already do so, and if you could leave us a review and 5 stars, that would be amazing. Okay, bye, Merry Christmas.